Welcome to the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast with your host, Jeremy Thake. Each week, you'll catch us speaking to expert developers about new tech, lessons learned, and opinions in this space.
Hello, so how you going?
Doing good, man. How are you doing?
Really, really good. It's been a busy few months. We've not caught up, I think, because we've both been busy and we've been like, well, let's wait just until this all rolls out before we start talking about these things. And here we are.
Yeah, this is like one of those, you come up with this great idea of like, let's just wait until we're going to have this big plan when everything releases. And that's when we're going to get together. And then all of a sudden, like when it takes time for things to release and schedules never line up the way that you probably want them to, and like you're probably herding cats and everything over in Redmond, then it's like, oh, great. So we're not going to get together for like 2-3 months. Like, okay. I mean, we tried to record this one for like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm glad we're doing this now though. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. This will be fun. I have a whole lot of questions for you today.
Oh, I'm sure. Like I think about it from talking publicly about these things. Build was in May. We're now, near the end of the year, and we had the Wave 2 announcements that Jared Spataro and crew did on a LinkedIn Live event, which was not really orientated to developers, but did show a lot of stuff related to what we showed at Build in a new light, which I'm assuming caused confusion.
It did. I mean, I got the heads up that, hey, I saw you signed up for this because I shared that I did the whole like LinkedIn. Yes, I'm going to join. And of course I never joined. I ended up watching the YouTube video that I could watch it in double speed. But you're sitting there, I'm like going, sweet, we're going to get all the news. Like this is the big GA thing, Wave 2. And then you're listening to it like going, and I don't mean to be, I'm going to be just a pure developer right now. But I'm like, I don't care about Excel. I don't care about Word. I don't care about Outlook. Like, let me see the stuff that I can build, that I can extend it with Copilot. That's where I tuned in. So I mean, that's what I was really looking forward to. I mean, the other stuff is cool. It's interesting, but I'm the dev side, right? This is the dev podcast. So I tuned in and I was like, sweet dev news, like going, and there's more stuff coming. Like, so this is Wave 2 too.
The unofficial non-marketing. Yeah. Although, Jared was in a hoodie, so he didn't wear his usual shirt and tie, which was, had to be all one of the things you notice when you've been doing this for a while of like, oh, that's an interesting decision by execs, and they do that.
I mean, I guess it's different when you're on LinkedIn and you're not doing like a video on like a Build or one of those pre-recorded things in the studios. Like we're gonna do it on LinkedIn. Like us more professional. Got to be a little more business casual, maybe.
So I'm gonna guess what your first question is going to be, but I'll let you at least ask it.
So. The naming.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, is that the first one you were going to think, or was it going to be dates?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to
say. Okay. So let's get into it. So the whole thing we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about Copilot extensibility, the Copilot extensibility story and customization story. Is that how you guys talk about it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we saw at Build, you talked about a whole lot of stuff of what you were doing at Build. There was a lot of stuff that people were aware of that you had already talked about, and then it was, hey, it's coming GA or it's coming public preview, I guess, in a few months, and now we're staring down the barrel at GA. But then there was some stuff there that I thought that right off the bat that I think is a little confusing is about the naming, and it looks. I want to make sure that I understand it, but then I also want to make sure like. This is all, and I'm not trying to trivialize it, but just for developers that are like going, wait, is this something new? This is just like literally, it's just a string replacement on existing names, right? There's nothing new here.
I'm going to twitch a little bit that just a string replacement. We've had to change manifests. We've had to change all our YouTube videos, all our sample code. Yes, the marketing department, it was just a string change on a bunch of PowerPoint decks and websites.
AI can change all that stuff for us, though, right?
Yeah, totally. Of course, we did it all really, really well, too.
Copilot did it, right?
But yes, the changes, when we were at Build on stage, we talked about Copilot extensions, and we talked about declarative Copilots and custom engine Copilots. So everyone got used to DCs and CECs as the two acronyms. And there was decisions internally that we wanted to rename to agents, Copilot agents as the overarching term, and change to declarative agents and custom engine agents. So DAs and CEAs.
Custom engine agents. I'm making notes here because I know I'm going to mess this up, and I want to make sure that I don't confuse listeners.
I have a fine jar every time I say the old words, and even internally we try to use the public-facing words because we had names for those names at Build, and so doing that, you kind of get used to flipping.
It's not,
but the main purpose of it, honestly, the naming change was that the industry is going in a certain direction with agents anyway, and I think we had been a little bit cautious about calling them agents because, well, we weren't really agentful in the way things work. But Satya essentially said, no, if we call them agents now, we'd have to rename them later on. And so kind of let's name them as our intent is of what these things can do in the future and essentially skate to where the puck is going to be versus, another approach. And I kind of respect the decision that was made to change them now, but like before we GA, and get that out of the way now before that word sticks and kind of has to change again.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly, I think the Wave 2 event in not even calling out, we've shown these before at Build. This isn't something completely new. And you could see on Twitter and LinkedIn, people being like, wait, what is this? Copilot extensions? Are these declarative copilots, or is this something different?
So,
like what happened? And so I think there was a little bit of, I don't think they appreciated how many people were following along from Build and saw this event and got confused.
That's what, so that got me where it was just like, hold on a minute. Are these just new names? And I know I trivialized it a little bit, but it's like, and I know there's a lot of other like content fixing and stuff. I mean, I'm in the content business, so I understand like, when you change a name for something, it's like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. Here we go. But I understand. Oh my gosh, I went through the whole, like the naming and watching all of the names change for SharePoint Embedded. And I had my own code name that I use. I even stopped using Microsoft's code name for all my content that I was delivering to Microsoft. And like, here's a new name. And I'm like, okay, I'm not changing it for 2 days. I'm going to wait. And like, hey, we got another new name. I'm like, I thought so. Let's wait again. So, okay. A couple of things I want to unpack that you just said. I want to make sure that I understand that. So you said, did you say 3 different things or did you say 4 things?
Yeah. So 3. Okay. So Copilot agents is the overarching term.
Copilot agents is the overarching term.
And then declarative agents and custom engine agents are the 2 terms underneath. And a declarative agent is an agent that runs on our business chat stack.
Okay.
And custom engine agents can be on any AI stack. You could be on Teams AI library. You could be building a custom engine agent in Copilot Studio, or you could be completely off our platform altogether and be running in AWS, Salesforce, Google Cloud, Oracle, wherever you wanted to run.
Okay.
And we would show and you could interact with your agent in BizChat.
Okay. Now I thought I had 2 questions. Now I have 3 questions. So you said something else. We've talked about before at Build, we had something called plugins. Yeah. So I'm kind of taking a step back first to answer the first question. So we have back at Build, we had 4 things. We had graph connectors of a way to we give a bunch of unstructured data to Copilot.
Yeah.
We that's done ahead of time to let Copilot then crawl or graph go crawl and index or vectorize and everything to be able to basically give Copilot more grounding on the specific data set or a domain set. Then we had plugins, and that was a way where we had the type of using Teams message extensions. We also had open API based specs that we could use, or we talked about it then. I can't remember if it was live by then.
Yeah, it wasn't live yet. Yeah, but we talked about it at Build, the API plugins. Yeah.
Okay. And so that was a way for us to, on the fly, go get live, real-time data, structured data, when Copilot was able to identify the user's intent, could then say, oh, look, I have a plugin that can do that, or the user added this to the chat. I'll go get some extra data. So now I've got graph data, graph connector data, my learning from doing my LLM training. I totally bastardized that, but you know what I mean? and then and now I also have like real-time data. And then the other two things we had were declarative copilots and custom engine copilots. So now, is my understanding correct that we don't call them plugins anymore? We call them extensions.
No, and that's where the confusion is a little bit there for sure, and I acknowledge that. So if you were fortunate enough to watch the BRK 150 session I did with Bart and Bora, there was a slide that became quite popular after that, which showed exactly what you just talked through, which was you can extend with a graph connector, you can extend with a plugin, or you can extend with a declarative copilot or a custom engine copilot. What we, being in preview, have decided to do is, based on our learnings of working with the biggest customers and our ISVs that are building products, is that effectively graph connectors you can absolutely build, and they can be part of the experience at BizChat, what we call mainline BizChat. So anything you do by clicking Copilot in any experience in M365, I ask it a question, it can get at M365 data, but also any graph connector data that you have access to. Okay. So that's one thing you can do as a way of extending Copilot.
Okay.
And then what we've decided to do with plugins is effectively say, look, because you can mention a declarative agent, because you can click on a declarative agent on the right-hand rail as a way of launching it immersively, plugins can live and be kind of part of that agent. And so there is no need for a plugin to be in that mainline experience of Copilot. We had lots and lots of feedback about the plugin flyout, where you had to go and enable the plugin when you installed it. And we had lots of feedback around how it invoked the plugin if you didn't mention it, by just semantically trying to match based on the prompt that you had. And so effectively what we're working on is, rather than trying to fix that for both plugins and declarative agents, we're just going to say, look, a declarative agent is what you would invoke in mainline BizChat, either via an app mention or launching it on the right-hand rail. And plugins that allow you to reach out to real-time systems is what you will do by having them inside of your agent. And both the Copilot Studio experience and the Teams Toolkit experience will follow that model. And so in the preview of Copilot Studio, you could create an action that was either a prompt flow plugin or a conversation plugin or a REST API plugin we've shown in the past. You won't be able to create those actions directly inside of Copilot Studio now. Now you will be, I'm building an agent, a declarative agent, and I can add those action types into the agent and then publish that agent into BizChat. And in the same with Teams Toolkit, I'll build a declarative agent and I can have an API plugin within that declarative agent and provision sideload that or publish it into Copilot. And then same with graph connectors. That does mean that if you've built a message extension plugin, right now message extension plugins do not support being part of a declarative agent, and we're still working through what that path is going to look like for a developer if you've been on that train for a bit. And everyone in the private preview that has been building those, we're kind of working with them on that. What we would encourage is, if you're going to build anything to an API, as your developer in Visual Studio, you should be using an API plugin within a declarative agent.
You should be using an open API plugin.
Yeah, so anything that's backed by an open API plugin, which we call an API plugin in the tooling in our docs.
Okay.
Our initial thinking with ME plugins was we have tens of thousands of ME plugins that are built and used in Teams on a daily basis.
Let me interrupt you real quick. You say ME plugins, that's a message extension plugin.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And so if you've built an ME in Teams, you can click on the plus in Teams and you can inject an ME card into your conversation and people can link on it. And our assumption was it was very easy then to use that exact same message extension within Copilot. The feedback we had in private preview was that you couldn't just take a message extension as is and have it work very easily with the AI. The orchestrator often didn't understand how to use the commands in a message extension correctly. And so there was quite a bit of rework that needed to happen in the message extension to make it truly work in Copilot. And most people, when they got to that point of reworking, were like, this would just be easier if I could build an API plugin and directly back it against an open API document that talks to an API versus me having a message extension that was backed by the bot framework and commands and .NET code.
Okay.
And so decisions were made that we would move forward with API plugins. And as I said, we're just still working through like the story of what we'll do with ME plugins and how we'll support those for those that have built them in the preview period.
Okay. So makes sense. That all makes sense. So if I'm doing an open API plugin, you're calling it just API plugin, but like the full name is Open API plugin, which I like the fact you're calling it API plugin because I keep screwing up and calling it an Open AI plugin.
Well, me too. Yeah. That's another one of my swear jars I have because I get the Open API and Open AI flipped all the time.
Your swear jar must be like a 5-gallon like water jug.
I'm going to buy a car next week, I would imagine. This
one of those new Porsches that Zuck just bought for his wife.
I did see that. Yes,
pretty cool. Okay, so if I'm going to build one of those, then am I hearing you correctly that if I'm building an Open API plugin, I'm doing it in the context of a declarative Copilot. I'm not doing it on its own. Or can I do it on its own?
No, good question. And you said declarative Copilot, so you can put one of yours in your find jar too.
Oh, sorry. Declarative agent.
So you can build an API plugin inside of a declarative agent.
Yep.
And I can do that in Teams Toolkit right now.
Yep.
New application, Copilot agent, and then pick with a API plugin. And then I can either say from a brand new API where it will start spinning up an Azure function scaffolding, I can do it with an existing Open API file, or I can even go and discover it from a directory of publicly available Open API repositories. And the demo we always do is the repairs API that Piers Bogan built that's out there in the wild that you can just type repairs and it'll go build your declarative agent with an API plugin that has already got the interfaces set up for calling, like creating, getting repairs, deleting repairs, and so forth.
Okay.
Or in Copilot Studio, I can create a declarative agent and I can add an action to that declarative agent, which is a REST API action. And what you do with that is just drag and drop an Open API document into that wizard, which describes the API. And that's effectively the same thing under the covers. It's just we're making it a little bit easier for a maker to go do those things.
So it's basically Copilot Studio is just doing the same thing that I can do inside of VS Code to go through and build it out. It's just
it assumes you have an Open API document in the right shape, which is, in my opinion, a little bit of a stretch.
I was going to ask.
Because we're finding in Teams Toolkit that there's still some tweaks you have to do to the Open API document to really get it effective with the with Copilot. But you could do this in Makers, but there is a few big ifs on the Open API being the right format.
I had a question for you, and I don't know if I should ask this, but I'm going to let you decide if you want to
just ask it. It's fine.
So I kept seeing all of this stuff prior to build, but I saw the Teams Toolkit guys, pushing Open API plugins, message extensions, and then I saw Copilot pushing it as well at build. I saw you guys pushing it at build, or talking about it at build. And it just felt like to me, there was this big assumption that everybody's got an open API spec. And I looked around and I'm like, I kind of felt like it was one of those, like, I think there was a movie, Greg Kinnear was in Little Miss Sunshine. And there's like, everybody's in there like clapping and he's kind of like looking around like, how am I missing the joke here? I'm looking at this like, I don't see many Open API plugins, lots of demos, but most companies I don't think have them for their stuff. And so I found like, I was a little surprised that it was like, it just felt like there was this big assumption was there. Were you hearing the same thing during the preview program that like customers were like,
yeah.
Okay.
So we're definitely seeing that.
Okay.
In the private preview, we've seen it a lot, and there's more work we're doing in this space to assist people in that. It definitely, Darryl Miller, who we've had on the show a few times, he's one of the people on the governing board for Open API Initiative. And it makes him shed a tear every time I give him the feedback that people aren't using Open API documents or Swagger, as they were known way back when, which again makes him cry even harder.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's work we're doing to assist in the authoring of those things, because you do need to, in some cases, tweak the descriptions. Like the description the dev might have on the open API that's there publicly is great and human readable.
Yeah.
But an LLM might read it and not do what you expect it to do. And so the experience with that in private preview is a lot of tweaking, of improving those descriptions so that the LLM does the right thing by it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we're providing in the guidance in our docs a lot. Is like, here's the right thing to do with the description of your declarative agent, your description of your plugin, your description of your function,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, describing your parameters for your function correctly.
Mm-hmm.
If you're creating a GitHub issue, making sure you describe the title of the GitHub issue, the date,
Mm-hmm.
what type of date is it? Is it modified or created?
Mm-hmm.
The what you want in the body, and those kind of things. So there's a bunch of guidance we're giving as we're learning, working with all these early adopters that we're putting into our docs to help you to, make that easier for that mapping.
Okay. All right. So that makes sense. And that's stuff that's not there today. That's coming. Those improvements, making it simpler to go through and to do the open API.
Yeah, that's it. So the next crank of our developer experience, which my group owns, is how we help you if you don't have an open API document.
Okay.
If you've got one today, you're off to the races.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you've got one today, you're off to the races. So what you just described, am I hearing you that you're saying that there's some stuff that you're going to want to make some changes to make it more Copilot friendly, or is it just that anything will work? Or is there like you need to be coached?
I think you need to update the descriptions of your open API if it's in a bit bad shape. Like if your open API is very raw, where it's just like, looking at quotes in the description fields of your open API, and if it's light, your LLM is probably, Copilot's not going to do a good job of picking that right function to call and populate the parameters that it needs to fill to get a reasonable result back. So the BizChat would then use to give that user an answer.
So you want the description to be more like a prompt that you'd be asking like ChatGPT or Copilot, that you want to be more, you want to think more like that. They want to be more descriptive of what I need and giving I'm talking to a 5-year-old of what to go do, not just go assume that I'm just talking to a sophisticated like computer scientist that's going to understand what's going on. Got it. Okay.
And if you don't own the open API document in Teams Toolkit, when we pull it in, you get a local copy of it. And so then you can edit it just there and keep F5ing and getting the experience right. Mm-hmm. The inner loop's very quick right now with the provision button in Teams Toolkit and BizChat.
Okay. So then the next question I have then is around like timing of availability of all of this stuff. Yeah. Actually, no, I want to go back really quick. There's one more question I wanted to ask you because we skipped over it and this tripped me up a little bit at the beginning. I'm going to pull one punch on this and be like, really, you called it that? But anyway, so we used to call it Copilot for Microsoft 365.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now it appears to be called Business Chat or BizChat.
Yeah.
All right, I'm not going to pull the punch.
So Copilot for Microsoft 365, I always felt, anytime I said it, it felt unnatural. It felt like I was tongue-tied by saying it. And the philosophy behind it is like, there's lots of Copilots at Microsoft. So start with the word Copilot, and then the Microsoft 365 for Windows was meant to be a way of, which Copilot are we talking about? Yeah. Well, it's the Copilot for Windows. It's the Copilot for 365. I think they had a lot of feedback that it felt so unnatural even to say, let alone to read anywhere, that they actually moved back to what it was originally, which was Microsoft 365 Copilot, because it's more natural to say it.
Yep.
Which Copilot? The Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Yep.
And then you can say M365 Copilot as well. But the interesting thing was they also they introduced a new term, which we'd been using from the very beginning of this stuff happening 2.5 years ago, which was BizChat. So internally, we never called it Copilot for Microsoft 365 or M365 Copilot. Since the beginning, we've always called this thing BizChat. And this notion of business chat is a way for us to differentiate between the Microsoft 365 Copilot and the Copilot that Mustafa's Cilium's group's working on in the consumer world, which is really, really neat. Like if you haven't tried the new Copilot, the voice stuff on that is incredible. And I've been posting a few fun things on LinkedIn about role-playing with it as a pretend you're my 7-year-old daughter that wants her ears pierced, and it has a full role-play conversation with you, and it's unreal. But the idea of business chat was to differentiate between what is known as Copilot in consumer and business chat. You're at work. You're talking to M365's Copilot.
Okay. I was a little confused by that. And then are you saying, I guess this is the more fun version of Biz Talk then, right? If it's Biz Chat, this is Biz Talk. Sorry, good pull the punch.
Yeah. That was the punch.
Yeah. So
technically it's just an orchestrator. We just have an LLM now, right? Like it is Biz Talk.
Yeah. Now it just costs even more than Biz Talk did because it's all AI. So no, I'm just kidding. Not really. So then are you saying then we just call it, is it, okay. Let's just like set the record straight here. Is it Biz Chat or is it Business Chat? But we also call it Biz Chat. But you can also call it Copilot for Microsoft 365, or you can call it Microsoft 365 Copilot.
You're going to see most people calling it Biz Chat.
So it's Biz Chat. Done. Full stop. Yeah. Is it okay? Yeah. Hey, the SharePoint crowd wants to know: is it Biz Chat as one word with capital C? Hey, you laugh, but you know it's a question.
Oh, I know. I've seen it with a capital C. I could check the official brand slide deck. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have a capital C on the official brand guidelines.
But it's all one word.
Yeah, it is one word. Yeah.
All right. For everybody's listening, I'm sorry that I'm splitting hairs on this because I'm a content guy. And so like, this is like part of my job to get there.
I realize like all the questions they could be asking Jerry right now, he's asking about capital C in a word. I did just see in an internal deck Copilot with a capital P, and it was just like grating to me as well. But
it was a trip.
I guess we've lived with this in SharePoint land for so long, right?
I've got somebody who's doing a complete rebranding of my company, and when I got the whole brand guideline and brand kit back from her, SharePoint was in there, Copilot was in there. SharePoint had a lowercase p on it. Copilot, I think was a capital C, lowercase p. And I'm looking at him like going, it's just a word. I don't care about that. That was part of the color palette that we were working with. So I didn't do anything with it. And I shared it with like one or two people. And they're like, that the P is supposed to be uppercase. I'm like, you can't, that's not important. I understand it's important, but that's not important in a brand. Like, okay, whatever. But
all right, Biz Chat is a capital C. I just opened up the brand guidelines.
Biz Chat is a capital C.
One word, Biz Chat.
Biz Chat is a capital C. All right.
And in most cases, the brand and the product name is Microsoft 365 Copilot. But if you're talking about when it's getting data from M365, you can use the word Biz Chat. But yeah, most people are going to use Biz Chat, I think, because we've internally called it Biz Chat since this product was incepted.
But they're one and the same.
One and the same.
And those are both legitimate terms.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So a site collection, a web, a site.
Okay. Next question.
Hey man, that's for those of you who are like going, what's he talking about? Like everybody else is kind of like, here we go. All right.
Yeah, I could tell you queuing up for that. And actually, to be fair, internally, I've just used this argument about why we're changing the manifest, which if you've been in our private preview, right now it says Copilot extensions in the manifest. Mm-hmm. We're renaming that to Copilot agents with this release because of all the pain that we've caused with SP Web and SP Site. And there was a few other examples in Teams that people brought up too. And so we're like, let's make the change. If we're going to name it again, let's make sure our manifests match what we say in our docs and what we say on stage. And so
at least today.
Yeah, just testament to all the engineers changing this in time based on that rename that happened from our senior leadership team.
At least today. I mean, it's Microsoft.
I mean, sure. They're going to have a different name. Build in May.
I know.
Yeah,
right? Somebody's got to.
We'll probably add like Server R2 to it. Copilot Agent Server R2 by May next year.
I mean, there's no way that group's going to get cut. The renaming team has got to be in there. So, so everybody's listening to this podcast today what can people say? Like, because I have had a hard time with everything, keeping track of like what's GA, what's public preview, what's private preview, hey, we'd love to do this and it's coming down the pipe someday. But so let me run through.
The best way to go is think about this. So graph connectors have been GA'd and supported in BizChat for a while because the graph connectors have been GA'd for a long time, right? Because they were using enterprise search, and effectively BizChat is accessing that same graph connected content through the search index.
Okay, so graph connectors is GA.
So that's checked.
Yep.
Declarative agents are also GA'd now. And when you have a Copilot license, a M365 Copilot license, which used to be called the Copilot for Microsoft 365 license in your tenant, you should start seeing on your right-hand rail in Copilot, if you launch it in Teams or office.com/chat, you should see Declarative Agents start showing up there, and we pre-pin some for you to start playing with. The creative agent is there, for example.
Okay.
And so if you've got Copilot Studio or Teams Toolkit, you can create your own declarative agents in there. A nice addition, which was shown at the Wave 2 event, which we did not show at Build, was Agent Builder. And what the Agent Builder does is within Business Chat, so I'm inside of Copilot in either office.com/chat or Teams, and I've clicked Copilot. On the right-hand rail where there are declarative agents listed, there is a Create Agent link too. And when I click that Create Agent link, it basically gives me a mini version of Copilot Studio for me to create a declarative agent, and it's awesome. You can create an agent with instructions. You can create it with SharePoint knowledge to either a site or particular files. And you can also pick graph connectors in your tenant to be included in the scope of that declarative agent. You can publish it for yourself, but then there's a share link that then you can share with others. So I've built a bunch of agents already, which we can talk about more in other episodes, just using the agent without even going into Teams Toolkit. The reason you would go to Copilot Studio or Teams Toolkit to build an agent is if you want to start doing API plugins or actions where you need to call after other APIs externally of M365.
Okay.
And so the agent builder, declarative agents is all GA'd as of you listening to the show. So as long as you have that license in your M365 tenant, you should start seeing all this stuff and you'll be good to go.
Okay. Then the other one that I was going to ask you then is around custom engine agents.
Yeah.
Where are those GA?
No. Not in Copilot, because we don't show custom engine agents yet in Copilot. At Build, we talked about being able to hand off to a custom engine agent from a plugin in Copilot. That has remained in preview because what we're actually doing is jumping the shark a little bit. And rather than having a plugin that hands off to an agent, a custom agent, we're actually going to just show a custom engine agent in the right-hand rail, and the user really won't know the difference between it seeing a declarative agent or a custom engine agent in the right-hand rail or app mentioning it directly. Right now, you can build a custom engine agent in both Teams AI Library or Copilot Studio. And when you publish those, right now, they will work in Teams. And if you use them in Teams, that is generally available because they were generally available at Build anyway. But the capabilities of custom engine agents showing up in Copilot on the right-hand rail and mentioning them in the same way as a declarative agent, we're still working on that. And that's actually not even in preview right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot you can do with the declarative agent, like a ton you can do with a declarative agent just with instructions and API plugins, calling APIs and graph connectors and, the starter prompts. The benefit that a custom engine agent will give you is that effectively you own the model and the orchestrator, so you can tweak how it responds exactly how you want. You can train the base model exactly what you want to your usage, whatever vertical you've got within your organization. Whereas if you're a declarative agent, you're on our model, you're on our orchestrator. But with a declarative agent, there is definitely stuff you can do with instructions to tune it.
Okay.
And there's things I've done with like changing the tone of the agent. There's things I've done where I always want it to respond with a particular tagline after every response. There's things I can do in instructions to format how it renders my response in a table or use emoji icons to represent things.
Yeah.
There's things you can do with instructions, but it's not going to give you the full kind of customization you get if you had your own model running off somewhere else. And so we're still working on that. We really wanted to get it into preview at this time, but there's more work involved in getting those things exactly the same as declarative agents inside of Copilot. And so that's like the next crank that we're working on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's declarative agents are GA, graph connectors, those are in GA. Custom engine agents are in GA when you publish it in Teams.
Correct.
But it's not GA when you're using it in chat or the handoff feature that we saw at Build. That's not in GA yet.
Yeah.
Those are both in public preview?
The handoff is available in public preview, yeah.
Okay.
But with the direction we're going in with a custom engine agent just being in the right-hand rail and just being able to be mentioned, you won't actually need to do the handoff. The handoff is kind of an interim thing that we were just exploring as a preview capability. Yeah.
And then the Open API plugins, Open API, plugin, right?
API plugins are GA'd if they are in a declarative agent. You cannot build an API plugin against the mainline BizChat Copilot. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the message extension based plugins
is still in preview.
Still being massaged.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're working out what we're doing with that story to support those that have built them as part of our preview journey. And Rob Howard, my new boss, now that Yuna has left, has been very adamant in making sure that we have a direction where we're not islanding them off and that there is support for them moving forward, which is good.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think I got it.
I know. And sometimes I feel like this podcast could have been a video with nice diagram, but I have actually updated the slide from build. And effectively what we really did was remove the column that was the plugin column. So now there is just graph connectors, declarative agents as a column with both graph connectors and API plugins in them.
Yeah.
And then custom engine agents. So we just shrunk the amount of options effectively in terms of what your call to action is, which, you're always asking us for less options. But I think these three are the right ones. Graph connectors gets you M365 data that you can easily just discover sitting in Copilot. Declarative agents gives you a tailored experience for a particular job to be done or jobs to be done.
Yeah.
And then custom engine agents are going to give you that full level of in the guts of the LLM, you do what you want to do, and we'll just render it in the same experience that declarative agents show up.
Okay. I think I got it.
And then over time, we'll get more agentful. We'll get more agentful.
And when you say that, my understanding is like today, you're not taking action as much in the agents. You're mostly just getting information and providing it to people, but it's not when the
that's a good question.
When the user wants to do, when I want the agent to go do something on my behalf, that's the part that is not.
There's a user interaction. So I can build and I do this demo all the time, Copilot Studio. I build a GitHub action using the existing Power Platform connector to GitHub.
Mm-hmm.
I get the issues, fine. But I can also use the create issue action. And in my agent, I say, create me an issue to fix Andrew's Lego model that's broken in the background. And it will automatically create the background. It will automatically create the GitHub issue on behalf of that user. But that requires me as a user to inform the agent to go do that thing. When the industry talks about agentful, what they mean is that I can go tell the agent, hey, go look this up. And in the background, without me interacting, it might, as one of its decisions, go and create me an issue in GitHub on my behalf without me telling it to or allowing it to. Or more extreme is that agents can talk to other agents. So my finance agent could talk to my stock orders agent and the user isn't involved.
And liquidate my account.
Yeah. And that is where we're being clear that today agents aren't at that capability.
Yeah.
We're exploring that in the future, but we are effectively naming them as agents because we're skating to where the puck is going and living by that name now and exploring that space as the industry explores it. But I think the benefit with where we're going with Microsoft is we're doing all this and you'll experience it when you try one. If I tell it to create a GitHub issue, it will ask me, I'm going to go and create this issue and here are the parameters I'm going to use when I create it. Are you sure you want me to allow you to do it? So there's no interaction where it could infer something and go and do it without explicitly asking you, I'm going to go do this in the GitHub system or the Salesforce system or the ServiceNow system.
That sounds like you should have a little icon when you do that. Like something like, I don't know, like a little Lego. Like
Man, everyone needs a Clippy on their desk.
I know. This is the part where like, I do have to use this when you go through and like talk about this when you talk about this episode. I have a Lego, I have Clippy as a Lego.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'm big into Legos now with my daughter. And
Lego. It's not Lego.
I did say Lego. I did say Lego.
You did? You didn't say? I thought you said Lego.
Yeah, no, I'm in the Lego camp for sure. I'll have to go back and listen to the edit now.
Okay, yeah.
We built Stitch just recently because that's her favorite Disney character.
Yeah.
And she did that all on her own.
Nice.
And we're building the DeLorean. She's got a little bit building the DeLorean, so we've got to go back and get her excited about that one again.
Nice. I have I'm not allowed to get it yet. I have multiple that I'm not allowed to get right now. I have to hit certain business milestones to reward myself, but I'm still waiting for the Artemis rocket that's one. So over my shoulder, you can kind of see the bottom of the Saturn rocket, and then the McLaren P1. That's on my list.
Yes, I would like a real one of those with a Lego one, but both are outside of my
You can have a P1. Right now. I'll take the W one.
Oh, yes.
Awesome.
So I'm hoping that helped demystify a few things. We'll do follow-up episodes on a bunch of that stuff because there was a lot covered in there. But I'd love to hear people's feedback on this, what they're building now they've got the bits. Let's just keep this conversation going. And I appreciate it's been a journey and we've made some changes along the way. But I feel really kind of excited about where we're at. And most importantly, I'm like, what people bring in. I want to see the scenarios. I'm really excited to see what people do with this stuff.
I would love to share you some of. I've talked to a couple of very interesting customers, very unique customers that we've talked about how they want to use some of the stuff that, love to talk to you about. But I do want to ask one last thing because I know everyone's going to ask this because this is. I hope everyone's going to ask this. This is always what I ask at the end of I look for at the end of a podcast. If they wanted to go learn more. Where would you send them? Where would you send them for like the main page? Where would you send them for like announcements?
URL to rule them all. So aka.ms/M365 Copilot dev. And you'll notice that the URL survived the rename.
I was about to say, like, is it AKMS/BizChat dev?
Don't you stop, Mr. Connell.
Okay, that's okay. VT.
It'll be in the show notes.
That'll be VT.
But yeah, that will land you on the page, and then you can see all our docs. There's samples, there's tutorials, there's videos. Yeah. There's a lot to get started there, both in Teams Toolkit and Copilot Studio for these things.
And if they want to stay up on news and stuff that's coming up before we get together again.
The M365 Dev blog, which is the other link we'll put in here, which you can get to from that homepage as well.
Okay.
Yeah, which is the same blog that you've all been following along if you've been looking at SharePoint news and Graph news and Teams news for the last 10 years.
And that's devblogs.microsoft.com/Microsoft 365 dev.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. All right, dude. Thank you. Thank you very much for sitting down and talking to me about this.
No, you're welcome, man. Have a good rest of the week.
You do the same.
Thanks for listening to the Microsoft 365 Dev Podcast. Check out our show notes on www.m365devpodcast.com and follow us on X at M365devpodcast. We'd really appreciate it if you could give us a review on Apple Podcasts too. That's all, folks.